Okay, hello everybody. I want to make a little video looking at Axel Disasi, Chelsea's new centre back signing. I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about in terms of whether Chelsea actually needed a centre back with Fofana's injury and Thiago Silva being 39, but also you have Chalaba there. Badiashile is still injured. So I think there's something we can talk about there in maybe a different venue, but I wanted to talk about this player on his merits. And there's a lot to like, right? So 25 years old, early peak or pre-peak, really nice. Great physical profile. He's tall, he's strong, things we like to see. He's kind of bounced around a little bit in France through some different clubs, mostly at Monaco. Biggest thing to take note of is that he's played almost 20,000 senior pro minutes already. Like, yes, some of these are in national leagues and some of these are in Ligue 2. But this is playing against men for the most part. And that's a very experienced 25-year-old. So really, really nice to see. And I think there's a lot of scope for what he is. Again, another really nice thing is if we look at the injury history, nothing. The guy is always available. He's always fit, which is always really nice. If we look at McClockbot, which you can find on Twitter from Chicago Dimitri or McClockbot, really, really useful tool. We can look at some player profiling tips. Disasi, very, very high percentage of his passes are progressive. Very reasonable progressive pass volume. Quite good in the air. Doesn't foul a ton. Clearances is whatever. That just means he doesn't defend his box much. The interceptions and blocks being above average is nice to see for a team that doesn't defend his box very much. We'll see when we watch the video that he's quite aggressive defensively. It's a lot of jumping in to pip tackles instead of waiting to then, or to pip interceptions instead of waiting to then tackle dribblers. This is interesting. I think we can talk about this on video on why he's winning a low percentage of his 1v1 duels. And then the pass percentage, he just plays long quite often, which is not a big deal. So before we talk about some clips, we'll show his FB ref page. So if we look at his complete scouting report, there's a couple things to take note of. So like, I don't really, the attacking stuff doesn't really matter to me. A couple things that are interesting. He scores quite low on pass completion, kind of in all phases. And you see that a little bit in the video that he will fire stuff between lines and he doesn't really care about the other side of it. Like, it's, I'm breaking the line, it's your problem to deal with. But what we see is that actually he does a lot of ball movement. There's a lot of passes into the final third. There's a lot of progressive passes. He breaks a lot of lines with longer passes, which is an interesting dynamic to Chelsea because I think we've had some shorter passes. But I think this meshes a lot more similarly with what Colwill and Silva do. So that I think is quite interesting. Again, defensively, we see very low dribblers engaged. A lot of this is because he's jumping to intercept rather than letting people receive and then dealing with the 1v1. That's shown here too, which again is a low number, but it is what it is. And again, high interceptions. Very, very ball dominant center back. He can dribble past people. There's a lot to like. Again, stats with center backs is a little bit iffy, but there's a lot to like. So let's watch some of the video and see what we see. First off, covers depth well, good cushion header. Again, you'll see what I mean here. Shoves off the striker, connects the pass. Here's another one. This is all from the Toulouse game. I like the way Toulouse play. They're quite good. And they have some interesting ideas. Here you have him baiting the striker to come and then dribbling to the next line. One thing I don't love about this, and Rudiger used to do this, and not my favorite, is he dribbles the line, he plays into the next line, and then he comes to play and join, right? And out of midfielders, this is okay, but this leaves you pretty vulnerable for transition stuff if your center backs are playing and joining. It's not my favorite, and now you see they get played around. One thing he doesn't deal super well with is if the fullback is loaded and there's another player narrow, he doesn't really do a great job of dealing with off the front movements versus in-depth movements, and we'll see this a couple times, right? So this player from Toulouse shows off the front, And now he's like, okay, well, do I step because the winger can go in behind my space? This player's here, he can go in behind my space, so he's late to step. And now he's like, well, I kind of just have to foul this guy. The referee doesn't give it, but it is what it is. Here's another one. He plays in midfield, doesn't come off. Now you have an off the front movement. I'm just going to smash it and go deal with it, but things are a little bit messy, and my teammates have to sweep up. This is an awkward one, right? So he has inward-facing body position, which is fine. A lot of people talk about this now. A lot of people are cool with this in transition scenarios. Really good passer on the outside of him. He does a good job to delay and wait for help because the attacker has no helpers, right? Like, this is a good transition decision. And he has good footwork to keep him outside, except he doesn't really keep him outside. Right? There's a couple times where maybe he can pip inside, and you'll see that again later. Here's another one. This clip was cut a little bit early for copyright stuff, but you can see they manage a 2v2 well, right? So Disasi's dealing with a dribbler. The other defender comes, slides him on. They deal 2v2. He tries a really hard reverse, and he sweeps it up. Now, this is what I don't like, and this is like very young defender and kind of annoying for someone with as many minutes as he has and as much experience as he has. Like, this is just, like, boneheaded. And he gets away with it and whatever, but kind of weird. Here's another one where, again, he's loaded and he doesn't make great decisions to deal with it. Again, like, I don't really know why you're going to ground there. That's probably a peno. Some positives, he's very good in the air. He wins, like, everything in the air. And he has good cushion headers to maintain possession. Like, here's another one. He goes up right away. And then it comes straight back from Cucurella. Cushion header, boom. And he had that one at the beginning. Like I said, not the best tracking runners off his shoulder. So you can see here's one. Kind of just gets hoofed over his head. But then watch the recovery. Boom. And then the celebration. This I love. This I love. Okay, here's another one. All right, same as those clips before. Cherky's kind of like sitting in front of him. He doesn't really know whether he can step or he can drop. He does an okay job to contest this, but still kind of awkward. And then here's where we talk about him jumping in to intercept things. So, like, the fullback jumps across here. And so he slides. And as soon as he slides, he really wants to jump in and win this. Right? He does a good job. He wins. He can X. No problems. One of the things I worry about with him being so keen to jump in is there's a lot of, like, big, strong Premier League attackers that can roll you here if you get this wrong. So just, it's one thing to be a little bit concerned about. And then he actually does a pretty good job with this. He stays on his feet, moves his feet well, just keeps blocking. Some decent moments in the clips I watched. Now, where he really shines is as a passer. This dude is a nutty, nutty, nutty passer. The progressive passer stuff, sometimes you'll see is like guys just playing their fullback and the fullback is high. And there's a certain amount of that with Disasi because sometimes he plays in a back three. But also there's just so many of these needle passes between lines. It's like here you have, wins the ball, boom. Immediate transition the other way from a transition. Okay, here's the one where he plays the fullback, but these are the first 4 passes he plays against Toulouse. So you have the needle pass, you have a great driven pass out to a fullback. You've got a clipped pass out to a winger. This is lovely technique, great weight on it. And then you've got a left foot pass out to the fullback. This I love because there's not a lot of players that can do these passes with both feet at good pace. And a lot of times they'll like lose time by turning their body. And that's just a little nice thing. And then this is the 4th one. Boom. First 5 passes of the game. Right? Outside of the foot, left foot, right foot, clipped in the air, needle pass. Really, really nice stuff. Then you have a dribble to break a line into a diagonal. I think he's a little bit reliant on this big diag, but it's not the worst pass to be reliant on if you hit it that well. Here's another one. Boom. Needle pass between lines. And then this is the one I talk about where he says he's getting it between lines and it's your fault. So I think this kind of passing is very fun, especially when you have a 4-3-3-1 where in theory you're going to have 9-10 winger all really close underneath. So you're going to get lots of really fun movements out of that. One thing I wanted to look at is that nobody in France really presses. There's not a lot of it. So I went to watch some of his European games to see if I could find how he handles being pressed. So this is from pre-season because their Europa League knockout. They played Leverkusen, who like are kind of a mid-blocky team, which is unfortunate of the German teams they could draw. But you have PSV. PSV pressed 4-4-2 reasonably aggressively. Monaco's dropped their 6 in to split, so they'd build with a 3. Which is fine. It doesn't really change things. He ends up a little bit wider than he would be at Chelsea, but you can see some of the ideas still. Right? So he's a lot less comfortable. So first one, he gets like a little bit of pressure on it. They lose the ball. And now he's dribbling in. He's a little bit wider. Great look. These needle passes for sure are real. Great look between lines. A little bit wider again. He's just firing it in, right? Like these are the ones I talk about where if you're playing this pass for him to play him one, it has to be on the ground for him to deal with it. But if you fire it bouncing, like it's so hard for him to do anything productive with. And you have again stuck wide. I'm gonna fire it in, not my problem. So I think there's a lot to work with. I like the profile. I don't love the fee. I don't love it for squad congestion reasons, but at worst, I think we're getting a pretty good player out of it. So we will see where it goes with the rest of preseason.